Sehene Claire opened her eyes and found herself lying in a large bed, surrounded by pillows and soft white covers. She blinked her eyes to adjust to the brilliant light flowing through large windows that surrounded the room. It was round, too. Slowly, Sehene Claire sat up and looked around. On a table next to the bed was water. She drank some water and energy flowed through her body. She didn't know how, but the room seemed familiar to her. She went to the bathroom and showered. A long, multicolored floor-length dress hung in the bathroom fit her perfectly. Just as she was preparing to leave, Bella Justice met her at the door. Breakfast was a colorful buffet of fruits, vegetables, and breads Sehene Claire had never seen or eaten. Bella Justice advised her to eat mindfully, take a little of whatever appealed to her. After breakfast, Bella Justice gave Sehene Claire a quick tour of Story Sanctuary. Story collection and preservation is the purpose and reason for this city's existence and why it's protected. Before the Great Destruction, during and after it, for 2 millennia, too many of the stories that taught humans how to live, provided wisdom, taught ethics, showed how to live, were repositories of history, preserved cultures and languages, were lost. For centuries, those who survived in the protected places on the surface thought these stories were destroyed and lost to man forever. But we, just as you in Sanctuary, learned how to cultivate our innate mental, spiritual, and conscious faculties by sitting and developing those ancient practices of spiritual and magical traditions, using special words, visualizations, and intent. And we did this through stories. Bella Justice stopped talking and walked away from Sehene Claire. Without turning around, she lifted her palm, telling Sehene Claire to stop, as her grandmother used to do in Sanctuary. Bella Justice turned a corner and Sehene Claire could not see her, but she heard her words clearly. You are now hearing my thoughts. I am purposely directing them to you. Now I am going to be silent, and I want you to listen to what you can hear. Sehene Claire took a deep breath, and her eyes looked off into the distance, and she listened. A symphony of words surrounded her. She heard hundreds of voices telling stories, many in English, many in languages she'd never heard before. Yet she understood them all. She heard stories of creation, love stories, animal stories, spiritual stories, stories of healing. The stories flowed over and through her with the cooling comfort of the ocean. She floated on a cushion of stories revealing worlds and wisdom. When Bella Justice returned, Sehene Claire knew why she was in Story Sanctuary. Bella Justice's warm, soft hand held Sehene's as they walked. Yes, you are a story collector, just like Mage. He was given his name and purpose at birth, magician, wisdom, imagination. Those are the stories he is finding and collecting now. He is now in Africa, but he'll also go to southern India. Africa's easy. The radioactive fallout did not touch most of what was called sub-Saharan Africa in the 2nd millennium, before the disasters. But all of the continents changed over the millennia, and Africa has become a breadbasket for the world. It is one of the few continents that retained its name. Fortunately, none of its countries ever developed the capacity to produce weapons, even though some tribes continue to wage wars over borders and water rights. They still speak their languages, tell their stories, and perform their rituals. and they are open to sharing them with story collectors. Mage may run into challenges, but his wisdom will protect him. Now, southern India is what is left of that great subcontinent. It's an island and a country where Mage must use all of his powers to negotiate his way through a maze of millennia-old beliefs, grudges, magic, mysticism, and spiritual practices. They entered a large, round building whose walls were filled with bookshelves reaching to the ceilings. In small rooms, Sehene Claire saw individuals sitting and talking to small groups of people, with one person writing so quickly the hands seemed to fly over the paper. You see, this is how we protect our stories. Just as every other human group who survived the destruction, we know the height of humankind's potential is not more machines. Just as you and your leaders did in Sanctuary, we worked to perfect our minds. After the great destruction, those who remained, those who were fortunate enough to make their way to the pristine Northland, knew machines and weapons would no longer ensure the continuation of human beings on this planet. We have stories, just as you in Sanctuary did, of the few who stood up for nonviolence and cooperation as the key to continued survival. And we held on to the power of story. Even in Sanctuary, you had story holders. They kept you underground because they knew they were planting seeds for future story collectors. Your sanctuary was a model for story sanctuary. For centuries, story collectors brought back stories of sanctuary, and the earthquake liberating you was foretold. At that moment, Sehene Claire sank onto the bench beside her. The cool, sweet liquid Bella Justice gave her to drink quickly calmed her speeding heart and slowed her breath. Bella Justice sat beside her. With mesmerizing softness, her words wrapped Sehene Claire in a cocoon of calm and confidence. Sehene Claire, you see light. You know this. You have seen light since you were a child. The first time you sat in silence, you saw light. And when you told your mother, she questioned you, so you kept it a secret. You see the light of compassion and spiritual attainment. The stories you'll collect will be a balm and guide to those still burdened by the darkness of ignorance, hatred, and desire. Do not be afraid. When I learned who I was, I felt as if the weight of this planet fell on top of me. How could I hold the stories of the millennia of human existence? I was quickly reminded, I do not exist. Bella Justice is this role I have inherited to manifest in this physical body, in this time, to ensure the most important legacy of humankind continues. Our stories.